Let's turn today to John's Gospel, chapter 7 and verse 1. And after these things, Jesus was walking in Galilee, for he was unwilling to walk in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now here is a matter of practical wisdom that we can learn from the example of Jesus. When he knew that the Jews were seeking to kill him in Judea, he did not go there. There is no virtue in exposing ourselves unnecessarily to danger. There is no manifestation of faith in walking in Judea unnecessarily when you don't have to go there. To say, I trust God that He will protect me, and to expose ourselves to unnecessary danger is not faith, it's stupidity. When the devil tempted Jesus to jump from the pinnacle of the temple, if Jesus had jumped, that would not have been faith, that would have been stupidity and foolishness. Jesus didn't do it. He told the devil, you can't tempt God by doing foolish things and expecting God to protect you. God expects you to use your common sense. Don't jump off the temple when there's no need to. Don't go to Judea when there's no need to if there's a risk to your life. God has given us common sense. And very often people lead others astray by challenging them to have faith in God when actually it is presumption. Trying to tempt God by taking foolish, risky, dangerous steps and saying God will protect you. No. If you are sick and God has provided medicine in the world for its healing, you might as well use that medicine instead of being like some people who say, well, I'll trust God. Of course we trust God. We don't trust in medicines. It's God who is the healer. But He uses medicines and doctors. But all of us should be trusting in God, not trusting in men or in medicines. That's true. But what I say is, trust in God does not mean that we can't believe that God uses means to accomplish His will in our life, including healing. So there's a lot of faith in, so-called faith in the world, which is actually presumption. And so we read here that when Jesus knew that the Jews in Judea were wanting to kill Him, He didn't go there. Now later on, when the Father clearly directed Him to go, He went. Even though He knew they were going to kill Him, because then the Father told Him to go. And where we have a specific command from God to go, then we are willing to risk our life and go anywhere. But that balance, the balance of wisdom, is what all of us need. To know when to go and when not to go. Has God commanded you to do something, then go ahead and do it no matter what the risk, what the danger. But if God has not commanded you to do something, there is no point exposing yourself to unnecessary danger. Verse 2, Now the feast of the Jews, the Feast of Tabernacles, was at hand, and His brothers therefore said to Him, Depart from here and go into Judea, that your disciples also may behold your works which you are doing. For no one does anything in secret when he himself seeks to be known publicly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world, for not even His brothers were believing in Him. It's an interesting thing that when so many people in Israel believed in Jesus, and others in Galilee came to faith in Him, His own brothers, the other children of Mary, His mother, of Mary and Joseph, never believed in Him. They had grown up with Jesus from childhood in the same home, seen Him, and therefore they despised Him. When He came into His ministry at the age of 30, they still thought of Him as one of their brothers. And they despised Him. They didn't believe in Him. Jesus said a prophet does not have honor among his own relatives. It's true even today. Because the relatives tend to despise the prophet. Jesus also was despised by His brothers. But after the resurrection, we know that at least two of them came to faith. That was James and Jude, the two who wrote the epistles of James and Jude in the Scriptures. But at this point in time, they didn't believe in him at all. They despised him. In fact, they mocked him, saying that, go to Judea so that your disciples can see your works. You don't have to do these things in secret. Those who want to be known publicly, they didn't realize that Jesus had no desire to be known publicly. He had come to do his Father's will, not to be known publicly. They knew only one way of life, that if you have abilities, supernatural abilities, do it and make yourself known publicly. And if you are able to do these things, like it says in verse 4, show yourself to the world. But Jesus had no desire for that. His desire was only to do the will of his Father, and his brothers just couldn't understand that, like a lot of people today can't understand it. And Jesus' reply to them was, my time is not yet. Notice he didn't say, I'll never go to Judea. He said, I don't feel free in my spirit right now. I don't have a leading from the Holy Spirit, from my Father, to go right now. But your time is always opportune. You go whenever you feel like going. Because you're not interested in doing the Father's will. You're only interested in doing your own will. So you, whenever you feel like going, you go. When you don't feel like going, you don't go. But he says, I don't operate like that. My time has not yet come because I can only go when the Spirit leads me. Then he said in verse 7, the world cannot hate you because your attitude is worldly. You seek the world's honor. And so the world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it that its deeds are evil. The life of Jesus was a rebuke to the world of the evil of its own way of life. Not only his life, he testified, he spoke, and exposed the sin that there was in the world. Therefore the world and worldly religious leaders hated Jesus. But Jesus said to his brothers, worldly people won't hate you because you're compromisers. You don't testify that the world's deeds are evil. You can't do it. You don't have the moral authority to do it because your own life is evil. But in my case, the world hates me because I stand against that whole system which is controlled by the devil, the prince of this world. So he said, you go up to the feast yourselves. I'm not going up to this feast. Not I'm never going. I'm not going right now because my time has not yet come. He lived moment by moment. Like the pillar of cloud led the Israelites in the wilderness out of Egypt, Jesus allowed the Holy Spirit to lead him. And the Israelites could not move until the pillar of cloud lifted, but they did not know when it would lift. If you went to one of those Israelites, they'd say, we're not going yet because the pillar of cloud hasn't lifted. But 5 minutes after you spoke to that Israelite, maybe the pillar of cloud lifted and moved, and then they would move. And if you went up to the Israelite and asked him, hey, how did you start moving? He says, well, I didn't know 5 minutes ago that this cloud was going to lift. And that's what we see here too. He told them, I don't have a leading. My time has not come. So you go. I'm not going. And as far as Jesus knew at that moment as a man, he was not going. Because he had no leading to go. He didn't feel free in his spirit to go. And he stayed on in Galilee, verse 9. But, verse 10, when his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up. And this is what stumbles many people. They say, did Jesus bluff his brothers? He said he was not going, and then did he go? The natural man cannot understand the things of the Spirit of God. They are foolishness to him. What happened? He did not bluff his brothers at all. It was just like I said, the Israelite who said he was not going because the pillar of cloud hadn't lifted. 1 minute later it lifted and he moved. It's exactly the same way. Later on, we don't know how much later, maybe a day later, Jesus felt an urge in his spirit to go. And then he went. And then he was not bothered about what his brothers would think, whether they would misunderstand him, saying that he had told them a lie. No, he never bothered to give explanations. He followed the leading of the Spirit. The wind blows where it lists. You hear the sound, but you cannot tell from where it comes and where it goes. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. When we are born of the Spirit, we must allow the Spirit to lead us. And we must go where we feel free in our spirit to go. And when we feel free in our spirit to go. Not any other place, not any other time. And when he went up, he didn't go up publicly, but as it were in secret. Jesus never went with great pomp and show as a great miracle worker. He went quietly, seeking to be hidden wherever he went. He had no desire for the honor of men. We saw in John chapter 6 how once when they tried to make him a king, he ran away. The Jews were seeking him at the feast because this is one of the great feasts in the year at which all the male Jews were supposed to come together in Jerusalem. And they were saying, "Where is he?" There was much grumbling among the multitudes concerning him. Some were saying he's a good man. Others were saying, "No, on the contrary, he leads the multitude astray." Yet no one was speaking openly of him for the fear of the Jews. This has always been the case. There are those who say Jesus is a good man. There are those who say he leads the multitudes astray. But there are very few who say he's the Son of God. He's not just a good man, and he certainly doesn't lead the multitude astray. They've both gone astray. And the fact that they sought the honor of men, they couldn't stand for their convictions because they're afraid of men, verse 13, was the reason why they never got revelation. And it's the same today, dear friends. If you're not willing to stand for your convictions, even if that brings opposition, you will never know the truth. Stand for your convictions, and God will give you revelation on the truth.